Everybody, welcome to another math video. This is Nicholas JMV, and today we're going to be talking about graphing sine and cosine functions. Today we're going to be talking specifically about translating these functions. In video number 1 and 2, we're going to be talking about vertical shifts to our sine or cosine function, and then videos 3 and 4, we're going to be talking about shifting horizontally. So today there's an expectation that you have worked with graphing sine and cosine. You know how to find the key points. You know how to find the period and that sort of thing. So there are some expectation and background information that you have. So let's go ahead and get started. I already talked about what the translation is. We're going to go vertically. We're going to be affecting the y value. So there's going to be a number on the outside we're looking at. That value is called d. If the value is greater than 0, you shift up d units. If the value for d is less than 0, you're going to shift down. So number 1 there we're going to be talking about, that's example 1. Number 2 there, example 2. And also D is called the midline. That's a line that is the same distance from the max and the min of our graph. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the first function here. And we're going to be graphing a sine function. And we're looking for a few values here. So number 1, and I try to go in this order, I try to find the amplitude first. Remember, here's our A value, here's our B, here's our D value now. This new number on the outside. So let's look at the amplitude. And the amplitude here is, remember, an absolute value. It's a distance. It's a distance from the midline. The absolute value of 3 is 3, so no trouble there. The period now is still found by taking your 2 pi value and dividing it by your b value. In this case, the b value is 2. And what that tells me, that b value is called the frequency. The frequency tells you how many times your graph how many cycles your graph will complete over 2 pi. In this case, 2. It'll complete one of them. There's our period. The first one completes that pi, then you go another pi and you complete another cycle of that graph. So our period length is pi. And now finally, let's in red look at that value for d. That value is for d is 2. We're going to be shifting up 2 units because it's greater than 0. So what I need to do first when I graph this is find the 5 key points. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to break this into 5 different points or parts. Because we're breaking this up into 5, the first value is at 0, so we're only going to use 4 tick marks, right? So here's basically number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's the idea of this is. So how do I do that? Well, the 4 tick mark is always going to be my period length. The period length here is pi. So this last one is going to be pi. And then I start cutting this into half. So half of pi is pi over 2. And I talked about fourths, right? 4 equal pieces. Half of pi over 2 is pi over 4. So each tick mark here is worth a fourth. That means this is the 3rd tick mark. This is 3 pi over 4. And I can go ahead and do this on the same side over here. Same values, just negative. Negative pi, negative 3 pi over 4, negative pi over 2, and negative pi over 4. Okay, so I've got my tick marks. And now what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to plot my midline. My midline is 2. You can use a solid line if you want. But that midline, what it does is it cuts my graph, it moves my axis up. It's taking the x-axis in this case and moving it up 2 units. So those are where all my zeros are going to be. So when we plot sine, the 5 key points, remember sine starts at 0 and then it goes to a max, then back to a 0, then to a minimum, and then back to the 0. So there are 3 zeros you see here in the first 5 points for those key points. And that's what I'm going to use here. So I'm going to start at the origin, but remember, instead of starting here, I have to shift that point up 2 units, so I actually start right here. And this is where our amplitude comes into play. Our maximum no longer is 3. If our normal maximum was 3 without a shift up, and we shifted the maximum up 2 units, the max is 5. So I go 0 max. My max now, look, is up at 5. Then the next key point, back to a 0. then to a minimum. So 2, and if you shifted it up 2 units, right, my normal minimum would have been -3. With the amplitude shifted up 2 units, it's actually -1. So we go to -1 here, then back to a 0. And so here is one cycle over that period. And you can see here, there's that amplitude of, there's that amplitude of 3 right there, 3 units and 3 units. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and graph one more period of this. And I'm going to go down, so it's here's my 0, so we're going to go down to minimum, back to a 0, back to the maximum, back to the new 0 there. And the new 0 definitely is not a 0, it's shifted up 2 units, so the new zeros are at 2. So that's how I graph a function that's been translated D units up. So if you have any questions or comments, please type them below. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and hit that bell for the notifications. This is Nicholas JMV. We'll see you next time.